Dean Laurinaitis, Unleash This Book Reviews, bringing you new book reviews all the time. Yeah. Okay, so I just read Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception. Now, you probably have heard of this author. He's the dude who wrote Brave New World, one of the most famous books in high school literature that most of us are required to read, and if not required to read, most of the time just want to. At least for me, I wanted to read the book, so that's how I got into Brave New World. Anyways, the whole storyline behind the drug Soma and trying to escape the world where everybody is drugged up just to accept things as they are and all that stuff. It's a dystopian epic novel that's right up there with 1984 and stuff, and I think most people are intrigued by it. I was intrigued by it. And after hearing a little more about the author and stuff, I had heard about the Doors of Perception, which I remembered was something to do with the author taking a drug and writing about it. So when I went into the library and saw this book for sale for $1 used, I had to pick it up, and I read it in about a couple hours. It's only like 70 or 80 pages long. In fact, to me, it's sort of like an extended essay rather than a book. Now, this is complete nonfiction, which I know is not really my realm here, but he's a fiction author, so he has a good way of telling the story of a nonfiction event. And what happened was Aldous Huxley had been very interested at the time in finding mental freedom, freedom of consciousness, release from the everyday pains that we all feel. I believe he even says ranging from the painful at worst to the mundane at best. He wanted something more, which I think we all do, and that's why we look at religion and, in this case, drugs. And Huxley realized that mescaline, which is the drug he would be taking in the book, is a main component in peyote. I suck at pronouncing things, which he noticed many Native Americans had been using as a religious enhancement for hundreds of years, and he was interested in this aspect. So when a friend had written that he was looking for volunteers to take the drug for scientific research, Huxley jumped right on board, and that's where the story takes place. And Huxley basically tells the story of the 8 to 10 hour period after the consumption of mescaline. He recorded the entire time, sound recorded anyway, so that when he wrote this essay, he could give us exact quotes of things that he said while he was on the drug. And what he realized was his values when it came to perception changed. He said time pretty much meant nothing. I believe he's quoted as saying the only real thing that he thought about it was that there was plenty of it. Wasn't really concerned about it. He also said he wasn't really concerned about spatial forms, which I thought was really interesting. And what that basically is saying is the human mind is constantly absorbed with distance between things. Now, this can be physical distance, like the distance between me here and the window over there, which he said didn't really matter to him in that state of mind. But it also means things like me sitting here now knowing that I have a book review to do, and the later form of me after I have read or given the book review. And those type of spatial constrictions, I suppose, didn't matter to him either. I hope I'm explaining that correctly, and I hope that I understood it correctly. And if you guys read this, tell me what you think too, by the way. So anyways, he goes on and he finds that what really is important to him is just experiencing and observing. So when he looks at things, for example, the vase with flowers in it sitting on the table, this new stripped down, clean experience takes place. So he kind of looks at it, I think he describes it as like the perception being naked, as we've grown up from being children, we've connected the concepts on top of things that we see. So rather than just seeing a tree, we now have given a name to it, given an idea of what it's supposed to look like, and in effect, more or less make made the observance of a tree kind of boring. And what he claims is that mescaline strips this down, and we no longer have these concepts attached to things, but can see them as if we're seeing them for the first time and see the extreme beauty in them. So he sees flowers like that. He takes specific note of fabric. Fabric seems to play a big factor for him. Looking at wool, looking at his pants and the folds in his pants, he said was extremely interesting. Now, what was very interesting to me was that man-made art had very little effect on him. He looked at paintings while on the drug and was more or less like humored at the fact that humans tried so hard to symbolize things and make a dent in the world with their self-absorption and placing it into an art form. And this comes across in visual arts. He listens to music and laughs at composers who were full of themselves. He says that he can hear that in the music itself, and instead is much more focused on just natural occurrences. Like when he walks out into the garden and sees a garden chair with a specific light shining on it, and just how mesmerizing that is. Nature is much more interesting under mescaline than human-made things. Even human-made things that we, at least in our mind frame, find beautiful. Interesting. The whole book was really interesting. Is it convincing enough that I want to, go find a dude and try and score myself some mescaline? Maybe not. No, probably not. But the lessons that he draws from it are moving. And if there's one, the biggest one that I can pass on to you is that when he went on this trip, what he realized is that humans spend way too much absorbed on the innerness and instead should be looking out at the outward world and appreciating that instead. So, that's my book review for this week. I am now 3/4 of the way through Moby Dick. So if you don't see a book review by next weekend, odds are you'll see another one the weekend after that. Sorry that there's such big gaps between book reviews, but Moby Dick is large. All right? So hopefully I'll see you next weekend, maybe the weekend after that. Take care of yourselves. See ya.